When the Lord your God gives you rest from all your enemies around you in the land God is giving you as inheritance, you shall blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget. So we're told twice, once to remember and a second time not to forget. So as we know, when the Torah repeats something, it means it's important to God. And we're here because we're committed to the belief of never again. That much guide our steps for Jews, also for other people. We're here today because we're committed to recalling the pain and suffering of our holy brothers and sisters who were killed simply because they were Jews. We're here to ensure that their voices are not forgotten. We're here to be sure that their stories are told to future generations so they can recall the victims of the killings and know who they were and not just see them as victims. We are here today because we, in our generations that are represented here and online, are taught to never forget. We are taught to be sure that evil is recognized and responded to. And finally, we are here because we aim to move from the pain and trauma to knowledge of real people. We must not only be sad about the Jews of Eastern Europe having endured what they did and the killings that happened most recently against the Jews in the south of Israel. We must remember and understand both the breadth and depth of the pain and the killings and the breadth and depth of our commitment to being fully bonded to our brothers and sisters and their descendants who came from Eastern Europe and Western, wherever it was, and in Israel. I want to thank Ryan for being here and working so hard. And Yisrael, may the people of Israel, which is a euphemism for may all Jews, live. Thank you.
So we're here today on Sunday, January 28th, which is the day after International Holocaust Remembrance Day. And it was chosen, January 27th was chosen by the UN General Assembly because it coincided with the liberation of Auschwitz. Oh, people want to see my face. Okay. We're now at the 79th year since the liberation of Auschwitz. And of course, we know that Auschwitz has become sort of emblematic of the horror of the Holocaust, where 6 million lives were taken from us, 6 million Jews. And there were 232,000 children deported to Auschwitz, most of which never came back. And even as we mark January 27th as the day of liberation, we know that for most survivors of Auschwitz, their hell continued for another couple months. Even as the Allied forces were approaching Auschwitz, the Nazis took the Jews on death marches and destroyed the crematorium, erasing the evidence, and continued to murder Jews. After the Holocaust, as the images that came out from that Liberation Day and the physical evidence that was there, the world was shocked, horrified, and we said never again. But we all know that never again has not come to pass. Even as the Shoah Foundation was beginning in 1994, it was collecting its goal of 50,000 survivors of the Holocaust testimonies. So we were racing against time to collect the memories. Even as we were racing against that time, there were 800,000 Tutsis being murdered in Rwanda. And today, as we've been watching the news on October 7th, we're seeing that the horrors continue. So today we're going to take some time to listen to the voices of the survivors. We'll engage in a virtual conversation with a Holocaust survivor. It's a time for us to listen, remember, contemplate, share, and learn from each other. And Rabbi, I know that before I played Neshama's music, I thought you might say something about her, if you'd like. I know she's different. Okay, what she says is fine. I'm a bit star-studded though, because I worked in Judaica shop for a couple of years, and Neshama was a staple. She played every day there, and I really enjoyed her music. And of course, her father was the famous Shlomo Carlebach. And so you see his music passes down from generation to generation. And what's nice is we have Micah here playing the guitar with her son.
Hi everyone, I'm Neshama Carlebach. This is my beautiful son. He is beautiful, it's true. This is Micah. Hello. He's 13. It is an honor to be with you from afar, but with you today. In honor of the Shoah Foundation, in honor of the survivors, in honor of those who perished, in honor of the resilience and the joy that our community somehow holds. I'm so proud to be a Jew. I'm so proud to stand with all of you in this moment. Thank you to Rabbi Len Muroff and to the committee and to all the volunteers and everyone who made this program possible. It is truly our great honor to sing with you today. This is Ani Ma'amin. I believe in perfect faith. We learn that even when the days are dark, even when it's so hard to remember why we believe, even when we're waiting for something to shift, we learn that our superpower comes from singing anyway. I believe that. I live my life that way. And I hope that wherever you are, even as we find our way, we navigate our way through this very complicated, challenging, painful moment, that you will find a song to hold on to and to sing. Maybe it'll be this one. Join us.
glad that we could be together. If you saw me texting, it wasn't to check the score in the football game that may or may not be happening right now. I was texting Neshama Karabach and I told her that her music has already been well received and people here are praising her, and she sent a nice big heart emoji. I wanted to come up, I told Ryan, just like explain like for 5 more seconds, the words anima mean, if you don't know Hebrew, mean I believe. And they say in the coming of the Messiah, whether that's part of your theology or not, at least if it isn't, it speaks to the hope, the sense that hope is for better days is right before us. So thank you.
So Holocaust survivor Isaac Goodfriend once said that every survivor has a story to tell. And from each you learn a little bit. So what I've done is tried to pick just a couple of survivors who I've, some of which I've gotten to know personally, and I would share some of their stories. We're going to look at a clip from Ed Mossberg. Ed was born in Krakow, Poland in 1926, and he died in 2022 at the age of 98. He was sent to the Krakow ghetto, deported to Plaszow concentration camp, and he worked in the offices of the infamous Amand Gurt. For those of you who've heard of him, he was convicted of and hung for murdering 10,000 Jews. And if you remember the movie Schindler's List, he was played by Ralph Fiennes. He was the cruel Nazi taking target practice and just shooting from the balcony at people for fun. And Ed described him as far more horrific than the depiction that was even in Schindler's List. I had the honor of meeting Ed when he was 93. He was a survivor of 4 types of cancer. He had cancer at the time. And he was a fighter. He was also filled with this incredible love for his family, for his wife, Cecile, who was also a Holocaust survivor. He took great care of her. And whenever he would recall his loved ones, he sometimes would break out into rage. I had the privilege of traveling with Ed. First, we filmed him in his home in New Jersey. And then we filmed in Austria and then Poland. And I'm going to show you a clip from Mauthausen concentration camp, where we filmed in front of the stairs of death. These stairs were infamous in that there was 186 steps. The prisoners from the crack of dawn were forced to carry heavy boulders up these stairs. And if they were to drop a boulder, it would be a death sentence for the person below them. Or if they were to slow down and rest, they would be shot or pushed off the cliff into the quarry. Ironically, the day we were there filming, the stairs of death had been closed off by a fence. It was deemed unsafe for the public. And that was not going to stop this 93-year-old man who would come there. He started to climb the fence. And you can imagine his family screaming at him. It was an insane thing to witness. But I knew he wasn't going to stop. So I turned to him and I said, Ed, there's a gap underneath the fence. Why don't you crawl under? So that's what he did. And that's where this clip was taken. Before I begin, I can show you the fence that was there. And that was our former executive director, Stephen Smith.
I lost my whole family, and this is my duty and obligation to come and talk what happened. I lost my grandparents, my uncle and aunts, cousins, my parents, my 2 sisters. I am the only survivor. My wife of 71 years of marriage, she survived also Mauthausen. She was liberated on May 5th, 1945, right now, right here in the barracks were right here in the Steinbruch, the stone mines of Mauthausen. She lost also her family, her 2 sisters were murdered in the Belzec. One of them in Belzec, and one together with my 2 sisters in Stutthof. They lined up their 7,000 women and shot them alongside the Baltic Sea. And in the morning was liberation. And her younger brother was murdered in May 14, 1944, together with my mother at the Auschwitz gas chambers. And they were burned to ashes there. And her mother got a benzene injection in Plaszow to the heart. And she saw when they were pulling her mother by the leg and put her on fire to burn her. And this is what I am here, that the world remember what happened. When we are all gone, the survivors, that this will be remembered forever and ever.
All of the survivors that we're going to hear from today were forced to make impossible choices that ultimately may have decided the fate of their loved ones. Sometimes they knew the consequences, and sometimes they had no idea. But either way, they're haunted by these impossible choices. For Ed, when they were deporting prisoners from Plaszow, he was trying to keep the family together and stay as long as he could. The Allies were approaching. It was 1944. And the day before, he had seen that not everybody was fitting on the train. And so the first group of people who were thrown into the train were deported, and some people were left behind. So that day, as they were going to take his sister, she was in line and towards the front, and he told her to get in the back. And the Nazis just switched things up, and they flipped the order, and she was first onto the train and was deported to Stutthof. Actually, Auschwitz and then Stutthof. And that scene he described of 7,000 people being murdered and shot in the ditch. His sister was murdered the day before liberation of Stutthof on May 8th, 1945 was the massacre, and it was liberated the following day. So Ed was plagued with perpetual guilt and regret. Couldn't be talked out of it. He felt like he was responsible for the loss of his sister. Next, we're going to take a look at Fritzi Fritzl. Actually, before we do that, let's listen to Neshama. Make sure I'm sharing.
May each of us return to a place where our souls are happy, where we feel free, where we feel love. May we return to a place, to a world where our children are safe, where we can live in joy and health with the ones we love the most. May we
So the Shoah Foundation was beginning to contemplate the inevitability that we'd be living in a world without Holocaust survivors. This was back in 2014. And as we all know, that the Holocaust survivors have been an important part of Holocaust education. They come to synagogues like ours. I suspect probably we've had survivors here talking about their experiences. They come to schools and they tell kids who are curious and can ask questions and try to make sense of what happened and hear their experiences. And they go to museums and the docents and they meet with the public. And so what the Shoah Foundation did was start to work with technology to create a program called Dimensions and Testimony. And the idea was we record a survivor for about 20 hours at a time, 5 days. We capture everything we can about their life. And we use the magic of artificial intelligence to allow a virtual interactive conversation. So I thought I would introduce you to Fritzi Fritzhall. She was a champion of Holocaust education. She helped found the Illinois Holocaust Museum, and she was the president of it. I didn't have the privilege of meeting her. We did record her in 2015. And the museum, if you remember, was originally founded in Skokie. And it was in response to the march that the neo-Nazis had threatened to march in 1977. And they had won the right in the courts to be able to march. But the community and the survivor community organized a counter-protest. And ultimately the neo-Nazis moved their march elsewhere. So it was a story of, I think, the community coming together to really stand up against those who hate. So we interviewed her in 2015 and she died in 2021. Share screen here. Bear with me, there's a little bit of tech. Hello.
Hello,
What is your name?
my name is Fritzi Fritzl.
How are you doing?
When we first started to build the Illinois Holocaust Museum, I was a volunteer like everyone else, and I am still a volunteer in the Illinois Holocaust Museum. I am really proud to have been elected as president of the Illinois Holocaust Museum. and it's been great serving them. It is one of the greatest institutions, I think, in actually the country.
Where are you from?
When I was born in Hungary, that became Czechoslovakia, that today is the Ukraine. So I'm not sure if I consider myself Hungarian or if I consider myself Czech. So it's a toss-up. But we, in our home, we have always considered ourselves Hungarian. So at that point, and we know that the borders in Europe keep changing. So it was Hungary at that point, I think.
Do you have any favorite memories as a child?
I think my earliest memories are about going mushroom picking and strawberry picking and being free, walking up to the mountains and swimming in the lake there and being a happy child. The early part of my life, you know, it's like, I don't know if it's intentional or unintentional, but there are so many things that are really blocked out in my mind from that particular time. And I've never really gone into that area. I've never gone into it to examine it. I'm not sure I wanted to because I have never really stepped into that line of where I could examine that part of my life. What was it like? I remember my childhood, but parts of it I've never gone into. I don't know why, and I've never thought about it. Just part of a life that was.
How old were you when the war started? How old were you when the war started?
When the war started, before we were taken away, I don't know exactly how old I was when the war started. When we were taken away from our home, I was not quite 13. And I lived, at that point, I was with my grandparents in a place called Iskus.
Were you in any concentration camps?
I was in Auschwitz camp. I was in Auschwitz concentration camp and also Birkenau. I guess they were next to each other, so they're referred to as Auschwitz-Birkenau.
Can you describe your arrival at Auschwitz?
By the time we came to Auschwitz concentration camp, didn't know about Auschwitz, didn't know where we were, didn't know what was going to happen. When the doors opened, we were greeted by very bright lights that were shining into this compartment. We were greeted by two uniformed men standing in front of each compartment. They were striped uniforms. I remember one of them wore a flat hat, striped. And there were guards with guns pointing at us. And there were women, SS women, holding on to dogs that were trying to get at us. And there were loudspeakers that are giving out orders to all of us in a language we don't understand, most of us. Those of us who spoke Yiddish understood some. Those who spoke German obviously did, but for the majority of us, it was an unknown language. And so they're pushing and pulling. And these two guards that came on, these striped uniformed men, were Jews that were brought there before us. They knew what we did not know. They walked amongst children like myself, and in Yiddish, in Jewish, kept whispering, "You're 15. When you get off, you're 15. Had they been caught, they would have been punished or probably even killed at that point. But they served their purpose, and they saved many children's lives because they knew that most of the children under the age of 15 were going to march to the gas chambers. We didn't know that, but they knew it. Separation started. We were pulled off and pushed off and started the separation. The young children, my brothers, went to one side. The mother that held on to a baby went to one side. The pregnant women, the old, the feeble, the men and women were pulled apart and separated, and the mothers that held on to their children, didn't want to give up their children, were pushed with the children. This is where I saw the first beatings with a gun. If you didn't want to give up your child, they just hit you over the head with a gun or pushed you away or threatened, or the dog got at you. And this is where I did not go with the children. This is where I went with the adults. I don't know why, but I heard the man. And so when the separation started, I went with my mother. I stood in line with my mother. And then they started to call age again. I don't remember what the age was. But I remember telling her, "You belong in that line. You really shouldn't be in this line." Because I saw punishment. I didn't want us to be punished. And so I thought, this way neither one of us would be punished. And I sent her into a different line with women. And when I asked several hours later, when I would see my mother, they showed me the smoke. Did I send my mother to the gas chambers? Don't know. Would she have lived? I don't know. I don't know.
Take a couple questions for her if anyone has them.
Didn't understand what she said about the 15 and under, because they said, say you're 15, then in the next breath she said that under 15, all of those children were sent to the gas chamber, so it doesn't make sense.
Right, so the guy was saying lie about your age. So that you could live, basically. You need to be 15 so that you can work. They thought, so if you're old enough to work. Right. So he was saying be 15. Right. But any questions for Fritzy? I've got one more, but if not, I'll ask her my question. Do you have any messages to the future?
I have a message for the world. I have a message for the world. Take stock. See the cruelty around you. Have compassion. Become good people. Care for your neighbor. And just be good to each other. Just be aware of what's going on. around you. And I think we all can do that. We all can look around and see whom we can help. We sometimes turn our back on people that need us.
So I thought at this time, I know there are people here who have been directly touched, their lives have been touched by the Holocaust and have stories. And I just wanted to give people opportunity to share if there's things that they would like to share. I think we have a microphone we could send around, or maybe it's probably better if you could, if you're able to come up here, but if not, we can. Yeah, Dina, you want to come up so then the people on Zoom can see you? And Rita, I don't know if there's people in the chat that want to share things, but we could allow that as well. Yeah, we just have to keep this. We've got about 7 minutes at this section. So actually, Dina, I think you're just going to speak right here.
That's fine.
That'll keep it simpler.
You mentioned that you weren't sure if we'd had other survivors speak in the temple.
Mhm.
And I know that you've seen the arm there that was donated by Frances Gelbart, who was a member of our temple, who survived. She was young when she was in prison with her mother. And fortunately, both she and her mother survived. She remains a member of the temple. She's in her 90s now, and she has retired to Carlsbad, but she still keeps in touch with everyone. She's spoken many times, and in order for us not to forget, she commissioned and donated that sculpture, and that is the number that is on her arm. I just wanted people to be aware of it.
Hi, my name is Karen Youngman. My mother was a survivor. She was actually the only living survivor. I am probably on the younger spectrum of having a parent, being a child of a survivor. My mother was a little older when we came around. And just very briefly, my mother was from Cologne, Germany. And she had a very lovely childhood in the beginning. And then in the 30s, we all know what started happening. She was pulled from school and sent to a Jewish school. She and her friends, Jewish friends, were tormented by the brown shirts. And just to speed things up, her father, unfortunately, he owned a design store, storefronts. He designed that. He was taken by the brown shirts. They dragged him through a sewer, beat him up, and deposit her father on their floor in Cologne in front of the house. And he died a few days later. And actually, before Kristallnacht, my grandmother, who was a designer seamstress, her store was lit on fire by the landlord. So to make ends meet, people already were trying to leave Germany, Jews, non-Jews. So she would sew jewelry and money and their clothing. And then fast forward to that, my mother, the only one picture that we have, it was in Cologne. It was 1938 in the summer. She was 15 and she was holding the pram of someone's child. And in the background, you could see the swastikas. That family with the baby they were leaving for the States in about a month or so. And then 3 months later, Kristallnacht happened. My mother and this background, my grandmother was one of 8 siblings. My mother was the only child of all those aunts and uncles. She had an uncle who went to Colombia. She begged him to get out. They said, no, it'll calm down. Obviously, it didn't. By that time, my mother and grandmother tried to get out. They were taken to a work camp, and those work camps were the camps that were building, getting ready for the death camps. And because my grandmother's a seamstress, she was in charge of getting all the uniforms ready. Something my mother had never really talked about her experience, and something I didn't find out until years later, almost 30, I knew I was adopted, and all my mother said I just couldn't have kids. I found out when she was 15, they sterilized her in the camp. So obviously my brother and I were adopted. Luckily, she had her uncle, we have no idea, he had connections in Germany, raised the funds to get my mother and grandmother out of the camp. They went to Colombia, and 6 months later, that camp was taken apart, and all the workers there, the prisoners, they were sent to the death camps. So my grandmother did survive. She lived with us for a while, but she said her greatest regret, she couldn't save all her family. And that was my mother's story. So thank you. I hope it wasn't too long.
No,
Okay.
Sorry, I think I let down those people on Zoom, so let me go back.
This is a song of comfort because we all need it so much. Sing with us, wherever you are. Nachamu, nachamu abi. We have what we need and more. Nachamu, nachamu abi. Yom ha'elokeh.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Neshama. And thank you for the people that shared, Karen and Dina. So it's very important that we remember that Israel is where Jews went after the Holocaust. And Ryan asked me to help make the transition to the sharing of the people that died or were killed, on October 7th. So just 6 points and then a mini prayer. So Israel's important to me because this is where Abraham and Sarah, the first Jews, were asked by God to settle. Israel is the land which God then promised them. It's one of the three aspects of the covenant that God made with Abraham and Sarah. Israel is a land where we are and were and are independent and able to chart our own future. Even something as silly, 40 years ago when I was in school in Israel for my year of rabbinical school, just to see Sukkot for sale outside the big department store in downtown Jerusalem, it was just so uplifting. It was nice to be in the majority. Israel is where the Jews of the world turned to when in the darkest days of the last century, they knew that they would be safe. And it's not only Jews from Europe that went there when they were in danger, obviously Jews from the Middle East, when they were chased out of their countries, they were able to go there. And clearly through the generations, many people have gone. The Ethiopian Jews come to mind, but also I think it was the Vietnamese boat people were taken in by Israel. And so it's really a sanctuary for many. It's where many of us have made Jewish memories, whether it's when we were teens or other times in our lives. It's really a place where we feel that it's really a part not only of the Jewish future, but of our and our people's past. For other things I don't have time to read, I Googled a new prayer about Israel that my colleague Rabbi Naomi Levy has written. I encourage you to Google her. She's written many, many beautiful prayers. Here's the one for Israel. God of the brokenhearted, God of the living, God of the dead, gather the souls of the victims into your eternal shelter. Let them find peace in your presence, God. Their lives have ended, but their lights can never be extinguished. May they shine on us always and illuminate our way. It's not easy to then, actually, it's not going to be easy to hear the testimony of the people that Ryan will share who survived what happened on October 7th. I encourage you to do your best, but if it is difficult, you're welcome to step out. And I don't mean in a silly way, but Ryan and I are prepared with Kleenex that's up here. Many of you know I was in Israel the middle of December, and we were at one of the kibbutzim that is the site of where many people were, we'll just say killed. Lots of other words I could have chosen. And it sits with you. So it may sit with you. So please feel free to reach out to me. And there are other folks in the larger LA community that have gone through the same thing. So we're all here for each other. And as one of my colleagues said to me, that I bore holy witness, and now you will too. So don't see it any other way. But one of the holiest things you can do is appreciate what happened to our people.
One of the thoughts that I've heard echoed by many survivors is that Israel is what stands between us and another Holocaust. That, as we know, the world turned its back on the Jews when Hitler wanted to expel the Jews, and the world closed their doors. And so Israel, I think, to the survivor community and to all of us has become not only a place of refuge, but sort of a symbol of keeping the Jewish people alive in a world where we're not always welcome. On October 7th, Hamas terrorists infiltrated and attacked kibbutzim, music festival, party, villages, cities, and army bases, and killed approximately 1,200 people and took 240 hostages. Today, 132 of those hostages are still missing. This represents the largest contemporary anti-Semitic attack on the Jews since the Holocaust. So Kfar Aza is a kibbutz that Rabbi went to visit. I've never been there. I can maybe pull up a image of it. Oops. These images that come up of a beautiful flowers in a community. You can see it's very close to the Gaza border. So Kfar Aza is a community with just over somewhere between 700 and 800 residents. And I was told that at the time there was visitors, a lot of visitors there. And so it was estimated there was 900 people at the time. Shaylee Atari Weiner and her husband Yahav were filmmakers in their 20s who worked together, living in Kfar Aza with their newborn baby Shaya. On October 7th, which was Shabbat and Shemini Atzeret, terrorists swarmed in. Some even flew in with gliders. Nope, looks like I'm battery there. Oh, that David, I don't know. I just don't want to lose the people in Zoom. Okay, so. Yeah, I think so. Sorry for the tech. Sorry, one moment. Really look like this.
There's only 6% left.
I don't want to lose. All right, well, we have 6%. I can keep talking. While they sort out the power. So Shaylee Atari Weiner and her husband Yahav were filmmakers, and they were living in Kfar Aza with their newborn baby. On October 7th, they started at about 6:30 in the morning. They started hearing all the rockets coming in, and Kfar Aza was infiltrated by, I've heard estimates of 70. I've heard survivors describe it as hundreds of terrorists. And essentially they were going house to house and attacking the people living there, brutally murdering families. People hid in their safe rooms for hours, some people overnight. And these safe rooms, they weren't really designed for keeping people out. They were designed for rocket attacks. And these safe rooms were in children's homes. They were just a room in the house. And so the killing, the IDF didn't have control of the kibbutz until Tuesday. So really from Saturday at 6:30 in the morning until Tuesday morning, the kibbutz was under attack. 63 people were killed. 18 people were kidnapped. 11 have been returned. So I'm gonna play a clip from Shiley.
If you hear an explosion, you can say that's rockets. We're having them at least 2 times a year this time of massive, only rockets. But when the shooting started, it means you have an infiltration of terrorists inside your village. And this stressed me out so much. And then we got a message to keep us inside the safe room, don't go out, and lock the doors. So Yav and me understood that Bakli, our dog, is not with us, and he wanted to go out and look for him and said, no, please don't look, please. I was They were asking, "Are you sure? I think they're inside our village." And then me and Yav heard tal, 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 and a lot of like a group of terrorists were like making a group outside of our window. I remember there's footsteps on the grass, on the grass outside of the window, on autumn leaves, like autumn leaves cracking. And I understand they're so close. And we changed to sign language. The agreement was, you're holding the door, I'm with the baby. This was the agreement, and we kept quiet. Even the dog was quiet. Shaya was sleeping. So they took the blinds out, and then they moved the iron rail, and I saw a hand inside my bedroom. And I knew that hand didn't come to shake my hand, like we both, but it was so fast that we didn't have a lot of time to say goodbye. It was like, and he opened the glass of the safe room window and tried to push the iron rail, oh gosh, tried to push the iron rail against them. And in one moment, I just took Shaya on my hands and ran away with no shoes, phone, nothing. I just like, and I'm disabled in my legs, so I'm limping. So the running was not fast like a able-bodied person. But I did it as fast as I could because they were shooting it at. And then I ran away. I took left and I ran with Shaya, not like looking back, but I heard it's like sounds of shootings next to me on a tree, and I tried to hide in bushes. I remember thinking they're shooting at me and a baby, a 1-month-old baby. And that time I understand that Yav is dead.
So it was a little less than 2 weeks ago. I had the honor of meeting an incredible couple, Devere and Maya Rosenfeld. They are in actually Shaylee's family. Maya described Kfar Aza as 95% heaven and 5% hell. The heaven she described was families growing up together, swimming together, going to school together in this beautiful, loving community. And the hell was there would be escalations, and periodically they'd have to evacuate. Devere, her husband, grew up in the kibbutz, and he was part of this large family. He was the first cousin of Yahav, who was Shaylee's late husband, who was murdered. So they were first cousins. And together, they were the Rosenfeld clan. Between Devere's siblings, who were living in the kibbutz, and their extended family, there were 6 infants, 6 babies, and that family comprised of 1/3 of the daycare. Unfortunately, Devere's sister, Hadar, and his brother-in-law, Itai, were murdered. Hadar was shot while she was getting bottles for her 10-month, she had twins. So her 10-month old twins. And Itai was murdered just after that, hiding in the safe room, trying to protect the twins, closing the door, and he was shot through the door next to the crib. Devere and Maya were getting messages throughout the day on their phone. This is known as the WhatsApp war because everyone was communicating over the app WhatsApp, which is a texting social media platform. And they were hearing what was going on with their friends and their siblings, and they were waiting to try to find out what was going on. And at a certain point, they came to understand that it was likely that Davir's sister had been murdered and his brother-in-law. But the twins were still alive. They were 10-month-old twins crying. And Kfar Aza is a place where all of the horrific stories about babies have been coming out in the news. But these twins were kept, and they were kept alive as bait, essentially, because there were several rescue efforts made, and each time a team or the security forces would try. There were 12 members of the local kibbutzim, the kibbutz security forces, against these hundreds of terrorists. Every time they tried to make a rescue effort, they would get shot at. But Davir knew his sisters, his nephews were in this place crying, and he was getting reports for hours and hours as they were crying, and he ultimately had to make the decision. He was going to go try to make a rescue, and his wife stopped him and said that he needed to stay so that his child, his baby, would have a father, and that the twins would have an uncle. His grandfather, Davir's grandfather, it gets a little confusing, but his grandfather, Yosef Wiener, was a Holocaust survivor, 98 years old, living in Israel. And he had 2 children, and they had 10 grandchildren, and Davir and Hadar, Yahav. Basically, he lost three people that day of his family. And so I'm going to show a clip of Maya and Davir. Actually, I saw it played, a piece of it played on CNN this morning.
Yav's grandfather and my grandfather is Yosef Wiener, Joseph Wiener. He's a Holocaust survivor. He's 98 years old, lives in Ashkelon in Israel.
He lost all his family.
He lost all of his family in the Holocaust. It was very hard for us as a family to tell them what happened, tell him what happened.
Maybe you can read what he wrote.
He wrote something and sent for us because he couldn't get to the funerals. We buried Adar, Itai, and Yav one next to another in the same cemetery in Srigim, which is right next to Bet Shemesh.
We couldn't bury in our kibbutz. Usually people get buried where they lived, but no one can bury in the kibbutz. So all of our deads, not only our, but also in other kibbutzim, everyone is buried like all over the country.
My grandfather wrote something because he couldn't come to the funeral. So he wrote, my name is Yosef Wiener, and I'm 97 years old. I survived the horrors of the Nazi. Do it please instead of me.
My name is Yosef Wiener, and I'm 97 years old. I survived the horrors of the Nazi concentration camps, survived their fire, wrath, and hatred. My entire family perished. I was displaced and disconnected from my roots, and built a monument in their memory from basalt stone. Despite adversity, despair, and grief, I clung to the land, planting roots in Zion. I married my wife Aviva, and we raised 2 beautiful children, Ofer and Nurit. From Ofer and Michal, we have 4 grandchildren in Kfar Aza. From Nurit and Miki, 6 grandchildren were born in Kfar Aza. Deeply rooted,
I planted my family tree in my homeland that bore fruit. However, on October 7, 2023, from within the walls of evil, the haunting scenes of fire, dust, murder, and terrible massacre of innocent souls reached me again. My dear grandson, blessed be his memory, was murdered while protecting his wife Shiley and the newborn 1-month-old baby girl Shaya. My precious granddaughter, blessed be her memory, and her husband, blessed be his memories, were also murdered while protecting their baby boy, 10-month-old twins Rui and Guy. Once again, I am exhausted of my strength, drowning in despair, sinking, and I have no more land to grasp onto.
The worst thing my grandfather said after we told him what happened, that he's sorry that he survived the first Holocaust, because the reason he survived the first Holocaust, he had to go through the second one, and because he survived the first one, we had to go through our first Holocaust. And to hear your grandfather that survived everything and is the age of 98, still sharp, saying something like that was heartbreaking.
Hallelujah.
I realized there was supposed to be a discussion in between that. That was a hard, hard there. Maybe we move on. Is that, yeah. I want to play one more clip from Devere and Maya.
So thankful for Shvaim. With Shvaim, it just took us to help people. So that they were referring to.
I'm sorry, I think I'm leaving out the people on Zoom. One more time.
You take the. We are so thankful for Shvaim, you know, the community of Kibbutz Shvaim that just took us. It's not that you take a family or two. You take the whole community into your place. So we are very thankful.
Not only Shfaim, all the,
not
all
only
the good
Shfaim.
people that are helping and
Yeah.
opening their hearts and
It's amazing the individual people in Israel, the people, especially the Jewish communities, but not only the Jewish communities, all around the world, especially in the U.S. It's amazing. It's amazing to see it, to hear it, to feel it.
I wanted to say one thing that I told it to Dvir after, that I wish that Dvir didn't have to go through that, but I'm so thankful that he was there with me. And we know about a lot of our friends unfortunately have lost people in their close family, husbands, wives, or they weren't together that day. I'm just so happy that he's here and we've been through it together, and I think we came out of it stronger. So happy with every choice we did. I guess we succeeded if we're here, so.
Few words before we play.
Gotta see if these filters fit.
Guess my closing thoughts are, I think we're all kind of at a loss of what now. I don't have the answers, but I guess my only thought is that we hold each other a little tighter and that we take care of each other, and that we come together as a community and we reach out. And
having such a hard time existing.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
What do you mean, yeah?
I mean, yeah.
I don't know. I'm mute all, baby.
Now, what do you want me to say?
And then yeah.
So I want to thank Ryan. This is not an easy thing to put together. You know, we could have not done this and then we could have all just been watching, you know, football, but you've dedicated your life and your career to helping the hard stuff be experienced. So thank you. And I'm not capable of thanking you in any more depth right now. I want to thank Rita, the three of us together, you know, conceived of this program, and thank you for the lunch that day and get to know the staff. It's important that we, you know, thank the people that chronicle death and horror on a regular basis, and we're going to try to give support to each other, and there are trauma specialists out there, and we're going to try to connect everybody. The last thing, two things. One, I'd love us to transcribe, and maybe it is, the words of the woman, the survivor who spoke through AI, and what her message was. And I recall her saying that we should be compassionate with each other. The rest, I really want to write down. And then I want to close by saying, you saw Devere wearing one of these tags. Some of us have been wearing them. And the Hebrew and the English, like in some prayer books where you may not know this, but the translation in the English is sometimes not what the Hebrew says. If you don't like the theology on the right, you kind of obfuscate the truth over there. And that's the same thing here. It says, Halev Shalanu Shli Ba'aza. It does not mean bring them home now. That would be machzir otam habaita achshav. So halev shalanu, our hearts, are being held captive in Asa. The quote that fits this moment is, I saw it yesterday in the margins of a book. Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Kotz said, the only full heart is a broken heart. So we have to go forward with our broken hearts. And I think then connecting with other people will help us be able to do that. Thank you to everyone for being here and online. And the closing is our chip.
I would like to thank Ryan and Neshama and David Youngman for doing the AV and Rabbi Len and the Adult Ed Committee members, Eleanor Richmond, Betty Maddock, Charlene Brotman, Marlene Palmer, Helene Moss, and Joanne Klotkin. And I would also like to tell you about some of our upcoming events for Adult Ed. We're having a suicide prevention program, February 7th at 7:30. And on February 25th, Chazan Mike Stein is going to be speaking and singing about the Abba Yudaya Jewish community in Uganda. And so that'll be February 25th, it's at 12:30. And then on March 17th, we're doing a walking tour of Boyle Heights. And the bus is being given to us for use by Supervisor Hahn. And so there's no charge for anything except we're going to Cantor's for Delhi afterwards. The bus will take us. And I told him separate checks. So, okay, thank you, Ryan.
Sure, I thought we would just listen to, oh, we have one question, yeah. I'm sorry, what was that?
The walking tour, March 17th.
And I thought we would close it out with Neshama made a beautiful video that's online.
Forgot one important thing. We have one other member of the Adult Ed Committee who is my husband, Bob. So. Well, he really is a really big help to us. So thank you, Bob. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. I guess I'm saying goodbye to all the folks on Zoom. Take care. Bye.